I was funny in law school, and a friend of mine in law school said, "You should do this on stage." I just started doing it, started getting laughs. I got hooked on getting laughs. I loved making people laugh more than anything that I ever had loved in my life. Law school did not help me directly, but again, the discipline it took to go to law school, to study, to work hard, I used that in stand-up comedy. I worked hard on my material. I put that effort in, and so that discipline helped, I'm sure. Part of the 70s, all these little scenes were sprouting in different cities: Cleveland, Boston, San Francisco, Chicago, Washington, D.C. Independent of each other, no one had any idea other people were doing it in these other cities, but people wanted to do stand-up comedy, just wanted to do it. I think we'd seen enough of George Carlin and Richard Pryor and Steve Martin, and we were young and just wanted to make people laugh. And then it exploded around 1980. Comedy clubs, clubs that were specifically designed for comedians to come in and perform. It had never happened in the history of the United States. They started springing up in all these different cities. And a road, like a new vaudeville happened, where people could go out and work the road and go to all these different cities, perform in comedy clubs. And I happened to be in perfect position where this happened in 1980 to take advantage of it, be a headliner. And then, of course, I did television and all those sort of things, but it exploded. And comedy went from being this sort of like outside sort of job, career possibility to becoming a bona fide, established career possibility. It became marketable, and people could make livings. People could make good livings doing stand-up comedy without even being stars. So that was the first time that ever happened. Well, if you didn't have to travel to the gig, a lot of times that was part of the workday, traveling to the gig, if you had to fly into town. But if you were already there in town, you got up and you went around and did something, that you had to do, eat, whatever. And then I worked on my material in the daytime, because I found that if I worked on it in the daytime, I may not come up with a punchline to the joke. I might have had a setup and a premise, but not a punchline. But if I worked on it and focused it, even though I didn't come up with the ideal punchline that day, at night when I went on stage, my mind was focused on it, was familiar with the premise, and wanted to do it, and provided a punchline on stage. It seems like that's where most of the punchlines happened, was on stage. But the premise, the working on the setup to the joke, happened in the daytime. And then at night I went on stage and things just filled in. Comedy is big business now. There are more comedy clubs, not in just big cities like Atlanta or San Francisco, Boston, But in small cities, small mid-sized cities, Amarillo, Texas, Toledo, Ohio, every little town has a comedy night in some bar or other. It doesn't matter. It's huge. There's never been this much comedy, stand-up comedy happening. There are more stand-up comics filling more theaters and arenas than ever before, making more money. It's big. It's huge. And you can see it. There's a network, Comedy Central, practically dedicated to stand-up comedy. It's never been bigger. I love those nature shows, man. Well, I'm more of a writer than a performer today, so when I get up, I like to write. And I'm writing a book about stand-up comedy in the 1980s, so I get up in the morning, and if I don't have to take one of my kids to school, I immediately start writing. And I work until about 12:30, 1 o'clock, then I exercise, and then I come back to the computer and go over what I've written in the morning between like 7 and 12 or 7 and 1, and then sort of just finesse it and rewrite it. That's it for today. I belong to two unions. Was three, but now there's two. There's SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, American Federation of Television and Radio, and then Writers Guild. But there's no Comedians Guild. There's no stand-up union. And I don't know if it would change anything, where it's like getting a bunch of pirates together and having them agree on everything that happens. The stand-ups tend to be lone wolves, and a union is not where you find a lot of lone wolves. And I don't know if there's anything that would change about that in terms of stand-up comedy. I don't think there's any possibility of a stand-up comedy union. Years ago, they talked about having one. They would settle disputes over material because comics are always fighting over who wrote the joke or whose joke it is. And that would be a ludicrous court. You know, Your Honor, my client did it in his bar mitzvah. I mean, I don't know what you would have. And I think the only thing that union did provide was a 10% discount for limousine rides to the airport. I think that was the only thing that union back in the early 80s provided. It didn't go far. And I don't even think there's a union anymore. That was a place for my generation when they went to, like, every generation needs a place to go out and sort of a nightclub and gather and watch entertainment. And my generation was kind of done with the rock concert stuff, and they were looking for something a little bit more date-oriented at that time in the early 80s, and that's what the need was. There was some place for them to take a date that was not just the movies, something where you go out and have a cocktail, an adult beverage, and watch some entertainment. And I think comedy just came along. There was a need for that sort of entertainment, and then it became a place available, which was all these bars that were looking for some sort of entertainment to draw people in, because live music wasn't really doing it anymore. It's taught me to roll with the punches. That's what it's taught me. It's taught me that nothing is guaranteed in life, and that you just give it your best shot, and the results aren't in your hands. That is exactly what show business has taught me. In terms of life skills, I guess I could go to any state in the union and make people laugh. I don't know if that's, I don't know. I mean, that's pretty much the skills I have. I could drive, so I could be a funny truck driver, or I could keep doing comedy, I guess. I don't know what other life skills I have.